One of the key areas that we consider to be of concern for companies now and in the future is intangible assets. Intangible assets now represent well over 2/3 of the total value within any organization or company throughout the world. A recent study was undertaken to try and assess this value, and the organization followed 5,000 companies in over 25 countries around the world over a 5-year period to track their asset value and look at the trending. The key headline figures that they came up with were that within those 5,000 companies, the total value of assets was in the region of $36 trillion. Most importantly for us was the fact that over 2/3, so $22 trillion worth of those asset values were intangible. So they were not in bricks and mortar, they were within the spectrum of brand through to intellectual property rights. This has massive consequences for the risk management and insurance program structures for those companies going forwards. When we talk about intangible assets, it really covers a very wide spectrum of assets, broadly defined by the fact that they are not physical, but it ranges from anything from brand value, which is very esoteric and difficult to pin down, through to things which have a lot more quantifiable value, such as intellectual property rights, copyright, patents, and the like. So it's a very broad spectrum, but a very high value. And as we said, as far as we're concerned, the vast majority of risk management and insurance programs have really spent more time focused on the physical elements than on the intangible elements. Okay, so what is the relationship and what is cyber and cyber risk as it relates to intangible assets? The way that we look at it is that cyber risk is a very loose definition, which is one of the problems, but it focuses on those risks associated with computer systems and internet systems that allow primarily third parties unauthorized access to a company's intangible assets. Now, there are areas around the fringes of that definition, but broadly we see it focused on unauthorized people such as potentially disgruntled employees. They might be individuals, third-party individuals. They might even be corporations or even state-backed enterprises. But all of them are using the internet or computer systems as a conduit to illegally get hold of the intangible assets of a company or organization. So really we see the link between the two as being cyber is really defining the conduit and the threats through that conduit for third-party organizations and individuals to get at companies' intangible assets. Now, when we look at the risk side of cyber risk, again, we see that and we define it in two ways. It really comprises of threat and consequences. The threats are very much, again, defined by the company and the space it operates in, but they range from disgruntled employees, individual espionage, potentially third-party theft, or even individuals working in conjunction with employees looking to steal data. And it can, within some people's definitions, also incorporate more traditional risks such as natural disasters or human error. The consequences to those threats really fall into two camps, and they are direct consequences to the finances of the company itself, and they can range from the value of the loss of the data itself, or the inherent value in the data, the software or the systems themselves. It might be the revenue streams that were running from that data or that intangible asset, or even future revenues. And it will also incorporate, for certain types of asset, for example, individuals' private data, it might incorporate the actual costs, regulatory fines and penalties, and defense costs attributed in certain parts of the world to a loss of personal data. The second set of consequences are third-party liabilities that flow from a company's breach of its computer systems. And primarily what you're looking at there is where a company is holding data on behalf of a third party, and that company's IT systems are breached, there is some problem which causes a loss and a financial consequence to their customers or third party to that data. An example of that might be where you are a third-party outsourcing company that has personal data that is being used by a sales and marketing team on behalf of a large utility company. And if your company is responsible for that data and there is a breach and that data is stolen, you will be liable to your customer, the utility company, for all of the financial consequences of dealing with that breach and the public that you will have to deal with. And there are a number of case studies across various different industry sectors, because one of the fundamental things that we're concerned about is that with the prevalence of IT throughout certainly the Western world, in most companies, in most types of industry, there is a huge threat out there. Certain industry sectors who don't see themselves as being IT driven are perhaps more vulnerable to attack than others because they haven't necessarily put in place the defenses that other companies have done. Probably the key area in which BMS is different to the competition in this aspect is, first and foremost, we understand a broader spectrum of risk and insurance solutions that are available to all intangible assets. And traditional insurance typically is a very compartmentalized solution. So if you have a particular risk, there will be a specific insurance product that is designed to provide coverage. And that might be ranging from earthquake cover through to credit insurance, through to intellectual property insurance, through to professional indemnity insurance. All of those will have a very specific set of triggers and will address a very small part of the spectrum of intangible assets that a particular company has. Most of our competitors will sell a single product solution. What we do is different. We will actually sit down with a company and we will understand with them the range of assets that they have first and foremost. From that, we will then look at the fullest spectrum of threats that they face as an organization. And from that, we will put together a bespoke, holistic solution that addresses those threats. And that will involve typically the combination of a variety of different coverages and also the creation of new coverages and new capacity to provide something that actually is fit for purpose rather than is just an off-the-shelf product. That's probably the main way in which we're driving this area forward.